Okay. Thanks, Ms. Boba.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. Hello and welcome. My name is Ms. Boba, and I'm here representing Fujocoded LLC, a somewhat unusual company with a bold, ambitious mission. But before I tell you about it, here's an ominous question to ponder. Why are you here today? I don't mean to attend the conference that Boris and team so kindly put together. Dig deeper. Why do you care about open protocols so much that you spend your weekend here at the Atmosphere conference? Are you excited to get your hands dirty with a new technological toy? Are you angry at how the tech industry squandered the potential of the web? Or is it that you see the huge second-order effects that social networks lock-in has not only on people's well-being, but on democracy itself? For me, it's all of those things. But put simply, I'm here because I love the internet. And above all, because I love the niche, often weird subcultures that find their home in it, that give even the weirdos space to find joy, connection, friendship, and build community with others like them. A few years ago, after Tumblr's porn ban scattered my community all over the web, I set out to explore what niche community like ours needed to thrive again. And I realized we needed to empower them with the skills to create and control their own social spaces. And to help them help themselves, I founded Fujocoded. So today, I'll show you the work we do and why it matters. I'll cover 3 things. First, I'll introduce fanworks fandom, my community, and why communities like ours matter to the web. Next, I'll showcase 3 projects I built to introduce this community to AT Proto. And finally, I'll explain why we must engage niche online communities early on to solve the problems we all care about. And with this, let's start from fanworks fandom. So keeping it simple, fanworks fandom is a loosely aligned community centered around creating fan art, fan fiction, and other creative works inspired by existing media. I'm sure many of you have seen us around for better or worse. But here are 2 things you might not know. First, we, as well as our sub-niche shipping fandom, have been around a long time. But due to copyright law, and because of other reasons, participation has historically been highly stigmatized, and in some circles, it very much still is. As a result, many of us rely on the online world for connection and on anonymity for protection. So, please continue pretending you don't know what I look like. Anyway, not only do we run a lot of online events, projects, and initiatives, some of which have decades of history and thousands of participants, but we do so without knowing each other's names or faces. Second, despite the stigma, we contribute a lot to both the online and the offline. This goes from helping save beloved series like Star Trek to archival world of all sites and media. From creating archive of our own, which serves thousands of fanfiction each minute on a fully volunteer staff, to making a sizable portion of the reaction GIFs you use. From challenging legal cases that threaten the internet to raising $18,000 to teach version control to coding hobbyists, which is the project that got Fujocoded started. I also have a copy with me if you want to see it. It has cat voice. But aside from look how cool we are, let me tell you why that matters to you. And I'll do this by borrowing the story of someone else you might know. And that's Matthew Chugosky, the founder of Pinboard. In 2013, Matthew gave a talk about his enemies to lovers running with fandom and how it changes perspective on the relationship between communities and platforms. As the shirtless picture of Kirk and Spock so clearly demonstrates, it's an interesting talk. I put a link in the slides, but here's the gist. Matthew, in his words, used to be a real jerk about fandom. That is, until Delicious' ex-community manager told him, you should look at how the fanfic people are using Delicious tags. They're doing crazy stuff. After his initial, no way fanfiction is lame, Matthew went to check, and again, in his own words, he discovered fans were indeed doing something incredible. They hadn't just used the tagging tools Delicious provided. They spontaneously converged on a set of elaborated tagging conventions that allowed them to turn Delicious into a custom search engine for fanfic. Without ever forming a steering committee or holding a standards meeting, fans had MacGyvered together an entire community-driven classification system, complete with grease monkey scripts and browser extensions. Now, there's much more to this story, including a collaborative 52 pages document coordinated entirely anonymously through Google Docs. So again, I highly recommend checking out the tag itself. But spoilers ahead, here's Matthew's conclusions. In his words, fans are an example of real people using machines to talk to one another. They are community already happening on the internet, something organic you can't easily engineer. Despite their often antagonistic relationship with platforms, despite the stigma, fans have built and rebuilt online spaces of genuine joy and connection, the opposite of the soulless, alienating, constantly fighting internet of today. As we all know, AT Proto is far from the first attempt at trying to make the centralized social happen. But today, more than ever, people online feel the need for what we're trying to build. We owe it to them to create something that helps real people build real community on the web. And as Matthew says, fans have a lot to teach us all about doing exactly that. So with this, let's go to our projects. This November, I needed a bit of a pick-me-up for reasons I'm sure you can all imagine. So with our flagship projects winding down for the holiday, I decided to use my live coding streams to explore a question I had been pondering for a long time. How do we get fans interested in open protocols? This is obviously a complicated question, but one where being an insider helps. As we say in my country, I know my chickens, and my chickens, whether they admit it or not, love falling for bait. Now, bait is an effective tool that must be wielded cautiously. People often sense when they're being baited, and it's hard for outsiders to distinguish between enticing bait that tastes sweet and artificial bait that tastes of betrayal, if you can even get people to taste it at all. As a member of fanworks fandom, however, I recognized immediately that AT Proto had one piece of delicious tasting bait our community wouldn't be able to resist, and that is the labeling system. Fans have a primal need to label things. You've seen what happened with tags on Delicious. So when I saw decorative blue sky labels, or as I call them, badges, I immediately knew we had the perfect entry point to pique their interest. After all, composable moderation may be new, but the urge to showcase yourself on your personal profile is anything but. Here is, for example, some old school website badges on the very modern sites of our community members. Modern social may have severely damaged web badges culture, but in our corner, it's alive, well, and ripe for exploiting. So we have the perfect bait, but what should we do with it? Before we go to the next slide, remember, we may be weird, but we come in peace. And so here it is. In shipping fandom, which characters you pair with each other and in which order is incredibly serious business. Some people are omnivorous and and open to experiencing many different couplings. Others have fixed configurations and may go as far as muting or blocking people who ship their favorite character the wrong way. Now, this may seem like an overreaction, and indeed, the customs of niche online communities tend to make little sense from outside. You'll just have to trust me here. This is a thing. It's so much of a thing that when a Japanese fan mapped different types of shippers to different animals, it became a worldwide community meme. So I asked the community to help me turn these animals into a set of labels and got to work on the fujin labeler. I probably don't need to explain how labelers work at this point in the day, but the long story short is that when you like a post made by a labeler like ours, you will get a corresponding label assigned to your account, like me getting my proud turtle fujin label here by liking the associated post. I built this project in the course of a 2-3 hour stream using Alice's labeler starter kit to do the bulk of the technical work. This way, unencumbered by the low-level details, I could focus on understanding AT Proto and on helping my community understand it alongside me, while building something that excites them. So now, I'm going to tell you what we learned, but I'll do so by directly addressing a less technical fanish audience who has never heard about protocols. With this, I want to show you that contrary to popular belief, it's indeed possible to talk about what we do in an accessible, only slightly simplified way. Ready? Let's start. In this talk and beyond, you heard people talk about AT Proto. This term may feel magical, foreign, and if you've tried looking it up on your own, utterly confusing. But if we take things step by step, I swear it's way more approachable than it might seem. Now, since the early days of the web, our community has had to scramble to work around platform limitations and build tools that have, make software work for us rather than against us. We talked about tags on Delicious, but you might remember extensions like XKit for Tumblr or software like TweetDeck. Usually, platforms have fraught relationships with these tools. At best, they tolerate them. At medium, they break them. And at worst, they acquire them and turn them into paid offerings we cannot afford. If you hate this, you're in luck. So do many technologies. Wouldn't it be nice, we sometimes ask ourselves, if software was designed to be compatible with other software so anyone could come build additional tools and services? To make this possible, the carriers of this dream need to do something really, really hard. Agree on how the relevant data should be shaped and how actions taken should be represented and communicated across programs. This is what's known as a protocol, a set of rules that, if followed, allow different applications to understand each other and work together on the same data. Now, you already use protocols every day without thinking about them. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are both protocols, and every time you visit a website, you're using HTTP, a protocol that lets your browser talk to websites you visit, either to ask for data or to tell them about actions you've taken. But while using good protocol is easy, making a new protocol and getting developers to build useful, beloved, widely adopted tools with it is really, really hard. And historically, this has been particularly hard for social networks, with many attempts and kind of mixed success. But technologies are nothing if not full of hubris, so from time to time, someone comes and decides to try again. The latest carriers of these traditions are the blue sky developers. First, they studied software built using existing protocol, like Mastodon, to understand what technological hurdles kept more people from adopting these platforms. Then, they got together to coordinate building the AT protocol, AT Proto for short, and its first test application, Blue Sky. Now, using Blue Sky as a testing ground, they're hoping to convince other folks, that is us, to give this new protocol a chance and to use our precious time and resources to come build other independent tools and platforms that use this shared language to communicate with each other. So now that you understand what a protocol is, how does AT Proto work? This is usually when people bring up diagrams like this one. If you're feeling your soul leave your body, you're far from alone. But here's the secret. You do not need to understand that diagram to understand AT Proto. Actually, completely forget about the diagram. Instead, let me tell you about something cool that will show you how it all works in practice, something whose value is both easily understandable and broadly applicable, and that is your personal data server. When a user creates an account, an AT Proto application like Blue Sky creates and assigns them their personal data server, also known as a PDS. A PDS is a collection of all the data associated with you as a user. In traditional online applications, like social networks, this data is owned by and locked down within the service you create an account on. Instead, think of a PDS as your personal folder of data that different software can be read from and with your permission write to. PDSs are one of the central concepts in AT Proto, and to me, the coolest. And that is because they speak to something we all feel this day, even when we fail to articulate it, the desire to own our data. We've too often been locked into platforms we don't like, run by people we don't like, not just because all our friends are there, but because they own our data. Moving platforms means losing all the posts we've made, all our images, all our meticulously tagged reblogs. It often means accidentally losing some of our close connections, even when our friends do want to move alongside us. This friction keeps us locked in place, knowing the high cost of leaving a platform to rebuild from scratch over and over again. Thanks to a PDS, however, all your data remains yours, accessible by any application. This means that AT Proto-based services cannot hold your data hostage just to keep you from breaking up with them. But wait, there's more. When a PDS is created, it is also assigned a sequence of letters and numbers that is unique across the whole AT Proto network. This sequence, called a decentralized identifier, or DID for friends, is you and no one but you, no matter what platform you originally signed up on, what your current username is, or even who is hosting this folder with all your data. Everything you do on AT Proto only refers back to you by using this DID. This has a very juicy consequence. Since a DID is not tied to a specific URL, username, or service, it means that software can find and refer to you regardless of who is currently keeping your data safe and online for you. While by default, Blue Sky creates and hosts your PDS, you can at any point in time move it to a different service or even decide to keep it on your own server. With this, should Blue Sky ever ban your account, and to be clear, they can still do so, your data will be safe and can be used to rebuild your presence somewhere else. But let's go deeper. We say that a PDS is like a folder that contains all the data associated with you. Indeed, here's a list of all the subfolders in my account. This is, as the app.bluesky prefix shows, my Blue Sky data. Unfortunately, shame on me, I haven't really explored other AT Proto applications yet. So to quickly show you, here's the data of someone who has, as they say, tried to catch them all. See those different prefixes? By clicking through this, you can, just like any application can, see the publicly available data each service associates with the owner of this PDS. But let's get practical. What is inside these folders? Their name is often a clue. For example, app.bluesky.actor.profile will contain the data of your, or in this case my, Blue Sky profile. You can see how Blue Sky uses the data on the app. But remember, just because it's in the Blue Sky folder, it doesn't mean that only Blue Sky can write or read it. It just means they're the one that defined its shape and properties. Similarly, if you go look into the app.bluesky.feed.post subfolders, or in technical terms, collection, you'll find every Blue Sky post you've ever made. Here's the one I showed you earlier, in all its glory. I will leave looking into graph.follow as homework. Instead, let's look at one last example to bring us all the way back. Remember my turtle fujin label? How does our labeler know I should have that? Well, here's my likes. Guess what we'll find if we go rummage to them? Well, why? It's our labeler turtle post. Since the data on my likes is public, our fujin labeler program can read them to know I want a label and which one I want. No one can, for better or worse, stop it from doing so. But you can imagine that going through all of the users in the network to look at all their likes would be incredibly time-consuming. So our labeler does something slightly different. It listens to what AT Proto calls the fire hose. The fire hose is an almost literal stream of everything that happens in the network. Every post, every like, every unlike. Imagine our labeler program sitting at the bottom of this stream, waiting for the corpse of this enemy, a like on its post, to pass. Once it sees it, it will go and assign the requested label to the decentralized identifier of the person liking the post. Thanks to the fire hose, AT Proto software can quickly react to actions taken by users of the network, no matter what applications those actions originated from. And this is what protocols allow us to do. Ta-da! So here is how I introduce AT Proto to people. It's pretty dense, but I found it really resonates and gets people excited about what AT Proto can do, and sometimes about what they can do with it. Just keep in mind that I would usually pause after each meaty chunk to let people digest and ask questions. So as a quick bonus, I'm gonna drink water while you look at, here is some lesson I've applied while building this pitch. So knowing your audience makes all this much easier, and that's exactly why intra-community outreach can be so effective. But quoting Matthew again, to get people involved in your site or your protocol, treat them with respect and give them room to do it in their own terms. But this is not our only project, so let's jump to the second one. Our next project is once again deeply tied with shipping fandom, and specifically with the ever-popular fanfiction website Archive of Our Own, or AO3 for friends. Here, accounts can have two disjoint sets of labels. The first one is ratings. On AO3, every fanfiction gets exactly one rating to indicate its spice level, from general to explicit. Second one is warnings. AO3 authors can mark the stories as containing various categories of quote-unquote upsetting content, no such content, or a convenient chooses not to say, which is helpful for people who don't want to bother, or for stories where that would count as a spoiler. Each fanfic, like each labeled account, can have multiple of these warnings. Now you might go, aha, time to finally put moderation back into labelers. But this labeler is explicitly just for fancies. See, I have been online for a long time, I run multiple communities, and long story short, you cannot pay me enough to make me do moderation. It's a thankless job, and I know much better than to become the arbiter of who gets what label. Still, even without making this an official moderation tool, people can and do use these labels to decide whether to follow, not follow, or even block a user. Even on their own, badges like this can act as a before you follow, a warning system that tells people what content may be posted so they can choose to take manual action. So now, what should we explore with this labeler? Have a new question. What does a labeler's PDS look like? And how is it different from a user's? There's two things. First, we have this exclusive labeler service collection, which lists the labels our labeler can assign and their settings. For example, whether to automatically blur images in the post they're applied to, or whether to identify the content as adult only. But the star of the show is this AT Proto labeler under service and the associated URL. This is where the magic happens. The labeler starter kit includes a command to add the HTTP address of our labeler program to our PDS, just like you see here. Once this is in place, Blue Sky will recognize the associated account as a labeler. Then it will change its avatar to a square to properly identify it to others, and will provide a subscribe to labeler button for people to opt in to its services. So now that we officially have a labeler account, where do we go from here? Here's a trick. By visiting a special address on the labeler service, we can find a list of all the labels that the labeler assigned, each with the name of the label and the DID of the receiving user. This too is part of what AT Proto defines. To be an AT Proto labeling service, you need to have that address. This way, any application can visit it, read the list of assigned labels, and build its view of the labels in the network. Now you may be asking, well, this is all fine and dandy, but how do I figure out this address exists? And that's a great question that once again goes back to one big problem of designing flexible protocols anyone can use. And that is that people need to agree on what the shape of the data is and how to take actions on it. Actions like listing all the labels assigned by a service. So how does AT Proto solve this? It does so in two phases. First, word of God, in this case, whoever decided what AT Proto labelers should do and how, states that these actions will be available, what URLs will be associated with it, and how they will work. Then, two, they write a lexicon. Lexicons are special files that describe what endpoints exist, what they do, how to access them, and what type of data they will give back. They can be used both to discover features that are available and to automatically generate code and documentation for others to use. So if you're ever curious about what you can do with a service or collection, go look up the associated lexicon. And with this, here's the last project in this talk, the fanworks labeler. Once again, we are going to step up our game. First of all, we are going to label posts, not people. Next, we are going to assign labels. We're not going to assign labels by liking posts. Instead, we are going to go outside the Blue Sky app and let people use their PDS to sign in into an independent website that allows them to do so. So here on the left is how our website ended up looking. This is a simple site built in Astro, a framework beloved in our community that now has a convenient reference for AT Proto integration. As you may intuit, this is how it works. First, you add the URL of a post in the form you see, and next, you select which type of fanwork the post contains. It may be a fan fiction, art piece, an event, and so on. Then once you submit the form, one of two things happen. If the post is yours, our fanwork labelers will assign the labels you requested. If the post is not yours, it will be sent to a Discord server for approval via emoji. This way, moderation tools can reach our community where they already are. So when I first gave this talk, I went through the architecture piece by piece. But that's too long for today, so let me just introduce our last building block, feeds. Now that we have a series of labels marking different type of content, we can make a feed for each type and let people follow what's happening around our fanworks community. You may think, wouldn't tags be better here? But here's some food for thought. Tags are a global search indicator. In the widespread semantic, tagging something means you want everyone to be able to search for it. But niche communities like ours don't always benefit from a wide reach. While we want our work to be seen and maybe even searchable, we might prefer it remains in our network. And indeed, someone following a fanworks feed of their own free will is a good signal that if they're not one of us, they're at least okay with our whole deal. And now, to understand feeds, let's welcome back PDS-LS. To make our feed appear in the Blue Sky UI, we ran a script provided by the feed generator starter kit, which created an app.bluesky.feed.generator collection in our account's PDS, as well as one entry for each type of fanwork. As you can see in the Blue Sky UI, this results in a corresponding amount of new feeds. So now that we have feeds, how can applications know what's in them? You may be thinking, let's go find them in the feed service like we did for the labeler. That's a good suggestion, except there's no feed service in our PDS. If you think about it, it makes intuitive sense. An account with a labeler service effectively becomes a labeler people can subscribe to, but any regular account can create feeds. So where do we find our feed content? Let's go back to a feed entry and let's check the value called DID. This is the identifier of something in the network. But what? Well, here's a new trick. With a DID web value, a special type of DID, we can go to its .wellknown/did.json page to learn more about it. Once we do that, we'll find the blue sky feed generator service we were searching for. And indeed, each feed entry uses the DID field to point to a separate feed service that provides a specific feed. With this in mind, let's figure out how to access one. First, let's check the definition in the app.bluesky.feed lexicon as seen in the Blue Sky documentation. Here's one of the actions it defines, the one to get content of a feed. The documentation shows two things, the address at which the action is provided, and two, the parameters of the action. Armed with this, we can build our get feed URL. First, we use the address of the feed service we found at the DID. Next, we use the information about the action address and params from our lexicon. And last, we ask for the specific feed by using its @URI, that is, the unique network address of its record. Once we go to that URL, the feed service will give us a list of network addresses, one for each post in our feed. From here, apps can go fetch the latest data about each post and display the feed in its full glory. So with this, we are done with the project. So last but not least section, why did we do all this? Is it because these labelers will move a significant amount of fandom folks to Blue Sky? Is it because we want everyone in our community to make their own labelers? Is it because we want people to use our cool labeler feed Discord integration? Not at all. While all of this would be nice, our secret plan is much more sinister. And that is to join initiatives like lexicon.community. If you're not familiar, this initiative aims to work on independent shared lexicons owned not by Blue Sky, but by the larger AT Proto community. Here's my question, though. If these lexicons are supposed to be by the people for the people, then who are the people? Not who do we wish the people were, who are the people who can show up to this discussion? Usually, it's technical folks, and a very specific type of them at that. After all, what does one need to join? First, one needs to know this is happening and why it matters. Then one needs to know enough about protocols and AT Proto to understand what is being discussed. Then one needs to understand what an RFC is, never mind being able to parse the technical language in the proposals. You can see there's many structural barriers in place through no fault of anyone involved. This is just how this works. Now, protocols are about getting people together to decide how they're going to communicate. So lexicons are a fundamental stepping stone towards that. The formats and actions defined at this stage are going to have long-term repercussions on the network and what is easy and hard to build on it. If niche online communities like fandom want to make this protocol also ours, we must learn how to contribute our work and opinions. And indeed, I found that with a little bit of knowledge and a technical person steering the discussion, lay people can and will gladly give us valuable insights. But even without going as far as these initiatives, which will always have some barriers, there are many ways to grow people's ability to get involved. For example, here's a GitHub issue requesting to increase how many labelers people can subscribe to. After building our labeler and asking our community to come upvote it, we brought it from its original 6 upvotes to 47. Now, there are valid technical reasons for the limit on labelers, and this request is unlikely to be implemented as is. But doing this exercise still achieves two things. First, it shows us that people can and want to be engaged. Then it shows them that they can do so, and how. We've learned from the hobbyist coders in our community that commenting or upvoting on GitHub issues was often their first step in open source development, and we'll be sure to help people use this power again when the right time comes. So going back to Matthew words, fans are an example of real people using machines to talk to one another. And while our community has had a lot of ups and downs, internal wank, historical chaos, and so on, we know a lot about how to do the internet, which we do in a radically different way from many of you. Eventually, and I say this with all the love in my heart, it's up to us to stop tech folks from continuing to pursue what seems like a deep ingrained instinct, reinventing Twitter, but decentralized. By bringing in our experience, we can avoid encoding platform biases at the lower levels of the protocol and bring a bit more Tumblr, a bit more Amino, a bit more LiveJournal, a bit more AO3 to this ecosystem. All sites that, while they may not be your personal favorites, have been beloved by people like us and helped us build joy, love, friendship, and above all, community. To conclude, when people try to make decentralized socials happen, they often focus on getting developers on board so they can build TikTok but on AT Proto, Reddit but on AT Proto, blank but on AT Proto. I believe that's the wrong way to look at this problem. Now more than ever, regular people out there want what open networks can give them. In addition to convincing the developers of today to come build platforms on these protocols, we need to enable new people to pick up the tools so they can come and find their spot in the big picture. Whether it's contributing to lexicon discussion, filing issues, coding a new library, building a new service, running a relay, or the many things that a good modular designs like AT Protos allows. Then they'll gradually invite others in their community to come find their own places, so they can build new services that shine not because they are the TikTok of everyone, but because they're the tools real communities use, nurture, and make available for others. Because the truth is that eventually building a new, meaningfully different web cannot be done with the same tools, people, and incentives that built the one we've now officially lost. So, feel free to ask questions.
Yes, thank you so much. And yes, any questions, please come on up. I know it's the end of the day.
Yeah,
so.
Sorry about that.
No, this is great. Thank you so much.
I actually don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you for your Twitch live streams. If anyone is interested to watching people live code on AT Proto, I think Ms. Boba has some excellent videos on it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming. I am like so starstruck to see someone that comes to my live stream here. I'm like, oh my God, the celebrity. No, please come talking to me.
Yeah. Where can people find you on the live stream or on the internet?
Well, did I put my web?
Yeah.
If you follow me on Blue Sky, I always post about them, and probably on my Blue Sky account, there is also my own website somewhere, so, but it's, no, I was like, I have the same username on all services, but it's like, no, I don't even have that. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at this.
Not just how can we help or support you, do you have any guidance on, like you're serving a particular community and you're bringing this into AT Proto, which is amazing. Do you have any guidance, thoughts, literally things that you want to have happen? Are there actionable steps to grow more fujocodeds or more Ms. Bobas? Let's say the AT Protocol community wanted more Ms. Bobas. What would we need to do?
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of unique. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. I mean, I think we need to believe in the Miss Bobas of the world. Like, you know, you sometimes see someone. Like, I think, like, if I, sorry, now I'm getting emotional, but if I wasn't encouraged at certain steps and if I wasn't given by you the possibility of being here.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, not a question, it's
Yes.
a suggestion. Your labeler was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think of doing a browser extension?
I mean, did I ever think about doing something? Yes.
No,
yes.
no, sorry, yes. I meant like a button, click, and then it automatically does it instead of going outside to the website and put the link.
Yeah, you see, I think the part of like what I try to do is, you know, I could do a lot of things, but if I just do things, then I just kind of DOS myself, and then I want to do all the things, and like, sorry, DDS myself. Yes, DDS myself. And then like, I want to do all the things, and then like, nothing gets done because I'm busy building a browser extension, which would be so fun, would be great and amazing. So that's part of why I teach. Because I'm like, I want someone to build a browser extension because I want to see it. I think it would be a cool idea. Can I build more Bobas? Can I build more people that will do that for me? So that's the...
That's a perfect segue into the question I had, which is, do you have next things on your agenda that you're planning for your live stream or that you plan to build next?
Yes, actually. We started, before I came here, I was like, for the conference, I should try to make a lexicon since I'm like just talking about them all the time. So we tried to make a guest book lexicon, and I failed very hard. I mean, no, I did progress, and then things started happening, and I was like, oh my God, why is the documentation terrible? Why is everything terrible? Like, I don't get it. So that's where I left. And then I was like, before the conference, I'm sure I will have time to do it again. No, I didn't. So if you want to see me fail at lexicons, maybe not, maybe, trust me. If you want to see me potentially failing at lexicons, like, I think that's probably what's going to be the next talk. Yeah,
Cool.
Not next talk, sorry, the next stream. Don't know what the next talk is going to be.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Boba.